You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 26, Mike's Picks.
Yes, I'm going to be picking some tracks today.
10 very juicy tracks, plus that delicious little intro that we just came in on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hungry, I promise.
It's so moist and delicious, like a cheese sandwich.
Oh, we're going to get flagged. You use the word moist.
Oh, that's true.
Inappropriate content.
Darn. We did Justin's picks last, I don't know, about 13 episodes ago?
Yeah, I think it was
like
episode
that?
14.
13, 14?
Yeah, so.
So now you all need to listen to me go on and on about random video games and their music.
Deal with it.
So, now we decided to do something a little bit lighter, and this is definitely going to be a very nostalgia-heavy episode on my part. I'm going to be sharing stories about the games that I've picked, as well as picking tracks that may surprise you. I've picked a lot of stuff that you're going to be like, really? That track? But really? That game? But a lot of it is pretty popular stuff. I didn't pick anything crazy, weird, like PC98 stuff or anything like that. And all the PC98 users just went, forget this, and they just deleted the episode off.
No, but there's some really good stuff that I'm excited to get into, some stuff that I haven't heard in a long time, and some stuff that I've just never heard. So I'm doing this as a quote-unquote blind listen. I've not listened to your tracks before coming on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I want to just sort of hear them and then react to them.
Okay. That's cool.
And then maybe ask you some questions about them.
Right. That track that we came in on, that lovely little ditty, was from Shadow of the Ninja, which came out on the NES in 1990. And that was the Prologue theme by my man's Mizutani, who's my favorite composer.
Yes.
And Kouichi Yamanishi. And that game is fantastic. It's a 2D action, side-scrolling, Ninja Gaiden style clone, sort of. You play as two different ninjas. One is like a purplish blue, the other is like a reddish orange, pinkish color. The bluish one is Hayate, and the orangish one is Kaede? Kaede? Yeah. There's an intro at the beginning, and that's when this song plays, when they're kind of telling you the story, which takes place in the year 2029. There's this evil emperor named Garuda who has taken over the US, and he's building this home base, and so the whole thing that you're trying to do is stop him from doing this and avenge all the innocent people that were murdered. There's two ninja masters that are sent from the Iga clan, and so that's pretty much the story for the games.
The ninjas come to America to avenge America?
Yeah, I guess.
Huh.
I don't know.
That's awfully kind of them.
That is, right? How nice of them. Well, I would imagine that Garuda would move into other continents and take over, so
that's fair. They're defending the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Who made this game?
This is a Natsume developed game.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the track first started playing, it sounded sort of like Double Dragon and Super Dodgeball. There was a similar sound.
That would be Technos.
Not
Tecmo. Yeah, Technos. I guess I could see what you mean by that. The drums specifically on this track are really interesting. This track has nostalgia for me because when I was in college, I was discovering a lot of hidden gems for the NES that I did not play the first time around when the NES came out. So in college, I would hang out with my buddy Brian, and Brian and I would hang out and just play random NES games. Stuff like Vice Project Doom, Shatterhand, just like weird action games that had really good music. And that's how I discovered a lot of the Natsume games, which are now some of my favorites on the system.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up with this game. I didn't play it, back in the day. This was kind of the first time that I played it. But when I worked at a game store, maybe like 2 or 3 years later, I worked at a store called Game Crazy, which was like a Hollywood Video offshoot.
Yeah.
This game came in one day, and I was like, yoink, and I snatched it up for like $10. And it's been in my collection ever since.
Nice.
So it's a really, really fun game. Highly, highly recommended. If you like Ninja Gaiden, it's kind of like Ninja Gaiden, except you don't like really bounce off the walls or anything, or Do
you stick to the wall or climb walls?
No. What you can do is you get this like grappling hook that you can shoot upwards, and you can pull yourself up onto higher ledges.
Oh, okay.
So it's very similar to Ninja Gaiden Shadow, if you've ever played that, because Ninja Gaiden Shadow was actually supposed to be either a port of Shadow the Ninja on the Game Boy, but it was not. We talked a little bit about it on the Game Boy episode, so we played a track off of it. So.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But that's my story on Shadow the Ninja. So, great game, great music. Iku Mizutani, I've talked about to death. If you're a listener from my previous podcast, Pixel Tunes Radio, we did a whole episode where we interviewed him, so go check that out. Kouichi Yamanishi was also a Natsume composer, but he only did a couple games. He did Shadow of the Ninja, Dragon Fighter, and Amazing Penguin all in 1990. So, not much else to say about that game and that music.
Well, it sounds pretty neat, and I mean, music is definitely on point, especially for Iku Mizutani.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty much his style. So it's Japanese action music. That's the best I got. I don't know. It's really sometimes hard for me to explain why I like an Iku Mizutani track. It usually boils down to, does the track have really fast-paced melodies that go kind of like all over the place on the fretboard, and are they super melodic? Is there usually a galloping bass or a do like that typical Japanese action game music, which I love so much. So
nice.
But we're gonna move into my first pick. We're gonna be going chronologically, very similar to what we did on your episode,
right, through
my picks as well. So the first pick that I got for you in this episode is Astyanax, and it came out on the NES in 1990 as well. This track is called Marshy, and it's by Toshihiko Tasaki. You're back! And that was the first pick for Mike's Picks, Astyanax, which came out on the NES in 1990. And that track was called Marshy, and it's by Toshihiko Tasaki.
Nice.
What are your thoughts on this one?
This track makes me think of a giant talking marshmallow. No. Sorry, no.
Somebody is really hungry.
No. I mean, with a name like Marshy, it just conjures Homestar Runner. But obviously, this track has nothing to do with marshmallows. This one was really, really neat. So I've played Astyanax.
Yeah. There you go.
Eventually, one day I won't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people that is always pronounce this game either Astyanax or I think that's the only way I can remember pronouncing this, Astyanax.
I used to call it Astyanax or Astyanax. Like I rolled the T and the Y together, like
Astyanax.
Astyanax. And some mutual friends of ours used to in college, when I told them about this game, they would make fun of me and call it Astanasty. Astanasty. So that is what people used to say about this game. I used to defend this game. Like I got this game for one of my birthdays. I was at Ground Round, which is a restaurant, family-friendly franchise restaurant. That's
like a Chuck E. Cheese or a Discovery Zone?
Yeah, it's more like a Chili's or like I don't know. I've talked about it in previous episodes.
You said family-friendly. I was thinking like kid-oriented.
Yeah, I mean, it's family-friendly as in a family-friendly environment.
Right.
They had arcade machines, which was cool. They had stuff like RC Pro-Am. They had TMNT.
Nice.
The arcade game. They had Snow Brothers, which I have very fond memories of playing, which we talked about on the
that's the
Toy Plan episode.
the bubble type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just start opening all my gifts, and I got this game from this random guy, Matt. And I was like, Astanasty. All right, I'll check it out. Popped it in, and as soon as I heard the first track, in-game Remlia, I just completely fell in love with the soundtrack, and to this day it's been one of those like nostalgic games that I beat when I was a kid, and I just relentlessly went back and tried to figure it out, especially that last level, because it's very similar to the Super Mario Brothers, because you have to go through a maze of doors, and I kept getting sent back to the beginning and I couldn't figure it out, and finally I figured it out. And what's really funny is I reviewed this game not once but twice on my channel.
Really?
Yeah, because the first time around I wasn't really happy with the result. I filmed the entire thing in my old apartment. I had terrible lighting back then. You couldn't see my face. I filmed right in front of a window, and it was in the middle of the summer. I had the air conditioner going in a tiny, tiny room.
Yeah.
The whole experience was awful, and I remember the jokes not being on point. I wasn't happy with the episode, so I ended up unlisting it, and I thought that the review was a much better job. And it's funny because when I did go back and recapture the gameplay footage, I kept making the same mistake in that last level. I was like, where do I go? Like, how do I get through this maze? So I ended up getting through the maze, beat the game, saved the girl. And what the interesting thing is that you would think that stereotypically in these games, the damsel in distress, which was the princess at this point, was the one that you would end up with at the end. Like, you know, the whole trope of that. But instead, it's actually your helper friend, this girl, Cutie, who's a fairy. And Cutie ends up becoming human because she dies in the game. Spoilers.
Oh, no.
It's like a 30-year-old game, whatever. It's not that big of a spoiler. So Cutie dies in the game, and then she gets resurrected at the end by the princess.
Oh, cool.
So you end up, and she comes to your world, and, then you take her to your world, and, the whole 9 yards.
The whole new world.
The whole new world, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the music for it. I don't know if I still have this in my collection. I know it was one of the games that I had when I was younger, but I never really got very far with it. But that's mostly because I never really put a lot of time into it. Like, it was a cool, action platforming side scroller, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was neat. Like, thinking about it now, I kind of would like to go back and replay it because I didn't really appreciate it for what it was at the time. It was just wasn't the type of game that I was into as a kid.
Yeah.
But I do remember that opening theme was really catchy.
Yeah.
This track, I mean, sort of getting back to talking about the track.
Sure.
Is really weird because I feel like there's a lot of discord in it. It sounded like they were playing sort of like discordant notes, but it wasn't like
like the drums or the melody.
No, like not the melody, but sort of like maybe even the melody, like not the drums, not the rhythm and percussion, but the actual like musical notes that were going on. There was a lot of.
Well, let's think about this. So it starts off with the bass line, that doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and then it comes in with the horn. I like to call it the horn section. The dun 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 dun. Very militant.
Yes, I think that's the part that I'm talking about.
Okay. And then you've got those jazz drums.
Yeah.
The
I love those. Those are a lot of fun.
This is probably my first exposure to jazz, in all honesty. Yeah. Aside from the militant sound of those horns for that sound font, you've got those really hard-hitting militant drums that also sound very jazzy, very free-form.
Yeah. Talking about jazz, that actually probably a good explanation as to the discord that's in the notes. And like I was saying, it's not the kind of dissonance that makes you go like, oh, this is awful, like somebody's playing the wrong note.
Right.
And in the world of Astyanax, like I can see this being like a driving song. Like I'm not sure if this is like a boss theme or
it is
like,
a level theme. It takes place in a very marshy, dingy, dirty level. Okay. It's the whole level is like purplish. And you're moving on these platforms that have like these giant eyeballs that are like looking at you, almost like fish eyes. And you're fighting these fish-type monsters too throughout the entire thing. The sprites in this game are very large, very big.
Yeah. For
the most part, most of the enemies are very large. So, yeah.
But it definitely adds to the atmosphere.
So the composer Toshiko Tasaki, this song often gets miscredited. It gets miscredited to Kiyoshi Yokoyama, who did the Astyanax arcade game. This game is nothing like that game, only in name. This has a totally new plot and everything. The game and the levels and everything. That was more of like a He-Man type game, action side-scroller game. This is less that, I would say. It's more like a Castlevania kind of, you know, jump and attack, kind of a game. But she started off with this game being her first in 1989, and then later on moved to other Jalico published games, stuff like Totally Rad in 1990, Saint Sword in 91, she was the music composer on that, Hit the Ice, the video Hockey League in 1992, and then later moved on to do some of the Shin Megami Tensei games like Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner in 95 and Shin Megami Tensei Persona 2 Innocent Sin in 2011. So she's been continuously working. So her last two games were Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed in 2013. That was a PS4 game. And also Octopath Traveler in 2018 for the Switch.
Yeah, that's really cool.
She was the sound designer on that one.
Nice.
So, yep, still in the business today. So we're going to move on to a track that is very near and dear to my heart. I love this game. I love this soundtrack. This is Super Castlevania 4. This came out on the Super NES in 1991. The song we're listening to is Spinning Tail, and the soundtrack is by Masanori Adachi, Akira Soji, and Taro Kudo.
Welcome back. That was Spinning Tail off of Super Castlevania 4. Came out in the SNES in 1991, and it was composed by Masanori Adachi, Akira Soji, and Taro Kudo.
Oh man, that fretless bass.
That fretless bass. That weird squeedly horn.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Got a little wild at points. I like it.
I love that fretless bass. I don't know what it is about this song, but this takes place when you are in the spinning room. That very unforgettable spinning room
the Mode
with the
7
caskets.
type room.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the room is spinning around you in this. I will never forget the first time that I saw that. I was super hyped to play this game. I was a huge Castlevania 2 fan. I skipped 3, and I don't know why I skipped 3. I think it was like one of those games where I was like, yeah, I'll get it eventually. And I never played 1 at that point.
3 was Dracula's Curse, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Super Castlevania 4 was going to come out for the Super NES, and I knew I was getting a Super NES, and I was stoked to play it. I had a subscription to Nintendo Power, and I remember getting an issue for it. And it had Super Castlevania 4 on the front cover.
Nice.
And I remember reading through that issue, just reading the Super Castlevania 4 stuff, just like soaking it into my eyeballs, like all the screenshots and all the like pictures and everything, and I was just obsessed with that game. But that held me off, like that issue held me off until I got a Super Nintendo, and like 2 or 3 years passed and I still didn't have the game.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't get the game until I was in 6th grade, or 5th or 6th grade. And I had a birthday party and I got the game, not even new, I got it used for my birthday. I got like a loose copy from like Funkoland or something like that. And I just remember enjoying the heck out of it. I think I may have rented it at one point, like when it came out.
Yeah.
And I think maybe like the rental satisfied me enough, like it held me off until I was ready to just playing this game. I wish I could replay this game with no nostalgia, because now I could blow through it in a session. Like,
right.
I'm super excited for that Castlevania collection that's coming out like tomorrow. That is going to have this on it, because it'll be the first time, I think, ever that I've had a portable, because I'm going to get it on the Switch. So it'll be the first time I've ever had Super Castlevania 4 portable.
Oh, nice.
Because they never ported it to any portable system. I think they may have done it on the 3DS, but I just never downloaded it on the 3DS.
Right.
And they also just announced today, as of this recording, that they're going to include the Japanese versions with a post-launch patch.
Oh, wow.
Like,
is it very different?
There's some subtle differences. Like, there's a little bit more nudity on the statues. There's, which statues, digital giblets. The blood, instead of being green, like in the sewer, it's red. Oh,
yep.
And there's some other like little subtle differences. I think maybe Medusa or something like that. It's like slightly more naked, which Medusa.
All those snakes for hair.
Oh yeah, turn me to stone, mistress.
Oh God.
So, I absolutely love this game. It is probably my second favorite of the series, which makes sense because it was the second game I actually played.
Yeah,
but
so I'm noticing a theme. Is this theme going to continue through the rest of the?
No more Castlevania tracks, I promise.
Well, no, we didn't start with the Castlevania track.
True.
So Astyanax and Castlevania. So the first two games that you talked about were both games you got for your birthday.
Yes.
So we doing birthday games throughout your years?
No, we're not actually.
Damn.
I think that is the last birthday gift. Yeah. I never really went out and bought games back then. Like,
I mean, as a kid, I don't think many of us did.
I only got games for 2 reasons. One was good report cards, and 2 was birthdays or Hanukkah. That was it. So those were really special times in my life.
Yeah.
And Super Castlevania 4 was definitely a big part of that. It definitely contributed to me being a diehard Castlevania fan to this day.
Fair enough. I mean, it's a great game.
Yeah, it is a really great game. Pretty much everything about this game is well designed. It's, in my opinion, a masterpiece. There's literally nothing wrong with this game. It's perfect. The only thing I would comment on is the music in the later portions of the game is a little weaker because it's all remixes of the original like Castlevania music, like Bloody Tears and Vampire Killer.
Yep.
Yeah. So
and the game itself is a a re...
It's a retelling. It's like a retelling because they've rebooted Castlevania 1 like 5 million times. So yeah, this is another retelling of this story of spoilers, Dracula is dead and then he gets resurrected and then Simon's got to go after him. So yeah, Simon Belmont, also known as Simon Belmundo.
Simon Telemundo.
That'd be a very different game.
Yes.
Now I'm just picturing that, like, Dracula, mi amor. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Dracula, chiquito.
Thank you, Pablo Francisco.
Simon Grande. So Masanori Adachi worked on lots of Konami stuff, starting with Russian Attack, which he worked on with, I believe, Iku Mizutani in 1987. Followed it up with sound design on Snatcher in 1988. Super Castlevania 4, Contra 3 The Alien Wars, Axelay, TMNT Tournament Fighters. He did sound treatment on, whatever that means. Did the composition for Rocket Knight Adventures, which has a fantastic soundtrack. He did sound effects for Dylan's Rolling Western in 2012 for the 3DS.
Nice.
Akira Soji started off with Super Castlevania 4, his first game as sound designer, and pretty much stuck with like Konami stuff. Castlevania Rondo of Blood in 93 was the sound staff on that. Tokimeki Memorial. Then he did the follow-up to Rocket Knight, Sparkster in 94. Snatcher in 94, which I believe was probably the Sega CD port. Contra Hard Corps in 94. And yes, I said Contra Hard Corps. Gradius Gaiden in 97. Crypt Killer in 97, which was a really fun shooter. First-person shooter, like, light gun game. Dancing Stage featuring Dreams Come True in 2000. And his final game, Dance Dance Revolution Disney Mix in 2000 as a sound programmer. Nice. Taro Kudo did a lot of different stuff, mostly working for Nintendo late in his career, working on design for Paper Mario Color Splash and Paper Mario Sticker Star in 2012. But audio-wise, he mostly worked with initially Konami. Super Castlevania 4, Axelay, Magician's Quest, Mysterious Times in 2009. Dylan's Rolling Western in 2012, which he did voice and additional writing on. And he did character voices for Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS and the Wii.
Oh, that's cool.
Or the Wii U. Yeah. So let's move into another Konami game, going from one Konami game to another. This is X-Men Arcade. This came out on the arcade in 1992, and the track is Junk Factory. This is by Yuji Takanouchi, Seiichi Fukami, Junya Nakano, and Ayako Nishigaki.
X-Men.
Welcome back to XVGM Radio, and that little ditty was from X-Men on the arcade. That came out in 1992, and that was Junk Factory by Yuji Takenouchi, Seiichi Fukami, Junya Nakano, and Ayako Nishigaki.
I just have one thing to say about this one. Get it!
I was going to say, X-Men.
Yeah.
X. And it sounds like somebody pointed this out in... Yeah. It sounds like somebody's having a seizure.
Jeez.
So, but somebody pointed this out on the YouTube, one of the YouTube links for this song, that sounds like he's saying eczema.
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 Yeah.
My eczema!
Yeah, eczema.
Fair enough.
So
I guess.
that song, I guess, is ruined for everybody. But I just remember playing this in the arcade and never really being able to hear the music until years later when I finally heard it. It just fell in love with the soundtrack. It's such a awesome, like, 90s, 80s mix of, like, New Jack Swing and Prince style, like, funk type stuff. It's really, really good. This track in particular has that funky, that really like jungle bass.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could explain it. Very jungle, very tribal. And then you've got those like twinkly kind of like guitar parts that kind of float throughout the entire track. This track, for whatever reason, in this entire soundtrack, it's really hard to find a really, really good rip of.
Really?
Yeah, like you'll either get it so that it's too bass heavy, or you'll just hear like the bass overtaking everything, or you'll hear other versions where you won't get to hear the X-Men, the X. You won't hear that, and then there's other versions. Like I've heard multiple versions of this song where I don't know who's doing the rip or what happened during the rip, but it's just poor quality or something happened where they didn't rip it correctly. So this was the best version that I could find of the song.
I thought it was a pretty good version.
Yeah.
I mean, are you aware of any problems with it?
Well, yeah, like in the background, those synths, like that type of stuff, is very kind of buried. There's so many layers to this song. First off, the jungle bass, then you've got the synth, like keyboard, and then you've got the guitar, which is like kind of like almost like a 70s, you know, disco kind of thing. Yeah. And that's kind of plucking around. Then you've got those drums, which are, you know, you can hear in pretty much every version. And then on top of that, you've got all those vocal samples with the X-Men, you know, just
get it.
Get it.
I really dug the entire thing. Like I often find vocal samples to be really kitschy and really cheesy. And I mean, sometimes they work in an ironic sense. But for how much was going on and how much was like happening in this track, I actually thought that the vocals fit really well. Like they complemented the rest of the insanity that was that track. And I don't say insanity like, oh, this song was like so stupid insane. Like like you said, there was layers there, and it was a lot of fun. Like I felt really jazzed listening to this track. Yeah.
Musically speaking, it's a very impressive song. It's just, I think a lot of people don't like the song because of those vocal samples, because they're so consistent.
Yeah, I mean they are. It's sort of like your preference with synth hits. Like they either need to be sparingly or just non-stop.
Yeah.
And that's not how I feel about vocal samples, but like I feel that the non-stop use of them was appropriate in this song. I don't know how to explain it.
No, and I think Konami does that a lot with some of their 90s beat-em-ups. They were very heavy with the synth hits. The TMNT games had them.
Well, especially when you're in the arcades, because that's the kind of stuff. Like those synth hits are usually heard over the dull roar of the arcade. So you get people's attention by having those hits. Like, oh, hey, what's that? Let's go play that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that actually. This game is based on the failed pilot for the X-Men cartoon, Pride of the X-Men. So have you ever seen it?
I have not seen it, but I've heard of it.
It is pretty silly. It's worth a watch. It's a great beat 'em up. This is one that I always searched out to find when I was a kid. And no matter what arcade I went to, this was always one of those games that growing up I was like, I'm going to own that someday. In my little,
this
10-year-old.
is the X-Men arcade game, right? This is the one, it's at Barcade. This is the one with Colossus. Oh!
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, the composers on this one, Yuji Takenouchi worked on SD Snatcher, Quarth, and Nemesis, as well as Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, all in 1990. Did sound design and music composition. After X-Men, he later worked on games like Crypt Killer, which we just talked about a little while ago. Later moved into games like Mad Maestro, Sky Gunner, and Chain Dive in 2001, 2002, and 2003. Then started basically doing sound design for the Demon Souls and Dark Souls series.
Oh, wow.
So did pretty much every single game in that series. Seiichi Fukami started off with Vulcan Venture in 1988 and followed it up with Thundercross and Snatcher in 1988. Biomiracle Bokute Upa in 1988, which was a Famicom game where you play as a baby. Gradius 3 was the sound designer on that one in 89, so most likely the arcade version. And after X-Men did Violent Storm, which has a great soundtrack, Gaiopolis in 93, Fantastic Journey in 94, and last but certainly not least, bottom of the ninth in 1996. He did the sound on that one as well. Junya Nakano started off with X-Men as their guest composition spot. I'm not sure what that means, but they followed it up with Hexion and Asterix in 1992. Later on did Tobal No. 1 and Front Mission. They started working on the Front Mission games for Squaresoft. So Front Mission Gun Hazard and Front Mission Alternative in 97. Then later on did composition for games like Threads of Fate, which was an, I think, action RPG in 1999 for Square Enix. Or Squaresoft. And then Final Fantasy X, they did the music on that. Samurai Legend Musashi, which was the sequel to Brave Fencer Musashi. Final Fantasy IV in 2007, which was the arranged version of Nobuo Uematsu's soundtrack.
Oh.
Final Fantasy 13, they arranged music on that. Final Fantasy IV, The After Years, which was like that sequel game.
That came out in the WiiWare,
Yep. Their final game was Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call, which basically is just Final Fantasy music.
Yep. That makes sense.
Ayako Nishigaki is our last composer for this one, and they're pretty short list. Biomiracle Bokute Upa in 88, X-Men 92, Asterix in 92, Zen Intergalactic Ninja in 93, which was the NES game, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, possibly also the NES game in 93. They did sound design on that one. So that is going to take us out of the Konami branch of Mike Dumb and move in.
Well, that's mean. You're not dumb.
I knew as soon as I said that, you were going to say that.
I'm predictable.
So we're going to move into a Capcom game. And this one, I don't have a lot of nostalgic memories for, but I kind of do at the same time. Mega Man 6, which came out on the NES in 1993. This is Tomahawk Man's stage music, and it's by Yuko Takehara.
Welcome back. That was Mega Man 6, which came out on the NES in 1993.
Yay!
The track was Tomahawk Man, and it was composed by Yuko Takehara. And if you couldn't tell, that entire stage, Mega Man is actually riding on the back of a horse while shooting the enemies. At least that's what I imagine, because...
No. Have you played this one?
I think 6 is one of the few that I didn't
No?
actually touch. I played 1, 2, and 3 a lot when I was a kid. I owned 4, and remember, I think, is 4 the one that had Pharaoh Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I had 4, and I played it a bit, but that's about the point where I started sort of losing interest in the game until the X series came out.
Yeah.
I played 5 a little bit, but then 6 I didn't touch. 7 I played on emulators. 8 is... Which one?
8's the one on the PS1. The one with, like...
Oh, yeah, I never touched 8 either.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I get X4 and 8 mixed up a lot because of the voice acting.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know how they made X, who's supposed to be more masculine, sound...
Like this.
Yeah. It's time to get serious. There we go.
Yes.
Let's talk about 6 then. So first off, what do you think of the track? Aside from the fact that you think that Mega Man was riding on a horse.
No, so I mean that's the percussion there, right?
Right. That's the standard Mega Man drum though.
Is it really? Oh. That's fair, but like what you're singing is more what I'm used to, and in this one, all I could hear from the drums was just like as if it were like Monty Python clacking the coconuts together.
Yeah, it might have been intentional because I mean Tomahawk Man, it's a Native American themed stage.
Right, and that's sort of my assumption is that there was that was part of the theme. It reminded me of a lot of the melodies from previous Mega Man games.
Sure.
Which I mean that's where all my nostalgia lies for this stuff. So I mean you make it sound sort of like da 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 da.
Yeah,
and it's you might as well just be that.
A lot of harmonized like dual octave melodies where like one of the octaves is slightly higher or slightly lower, which was totally Mega Man's bread and butter on a lot of those early games, especially like 3 and 4. Not so much 5, and that's one of my big complaints about 5's soundtrack is that a lot of the songs to me aren't memorable. I don't think I can hum a single song from 5 off the top of my head, but if you give me a boss from 3, 4, 6, I remember those songs because they were right up my alley. They had the galloping bass, they had the harmonized lead line melodies and all that stuff, and that's what I look for in both video game music and like regular music. Like a lot of the heavy metal that I listen to is a lot of like galloping bass and a lot of the really like soaring melodies. So that's just what I'm into. And Yuko Takehara did a great job with these songs. A lot of these levels were all like worldly themed. So I'll give you the skinny on 6. So 6's plot involves totally not Dr. Wily.
Oh, yes.
AKA Mr. X. Basically having his own tournament of all these fighters, these robot fighters that come from all over the world. So Mega Man's got to, take out Mr. X. You've got like Tomahawk Man, Yamato Man, who has the power to Yamato. Jeez. I mean, come on. What are they thinking? Plant Man, Flame Man. I thought that 6 was a nice return to form. I think 5 was a little too out there, but it tried a lot of new things like Gravity Man's level and like that little jet ski level. So there was a lot of really cool, neat, unique things. I enjoy playing 5. I just don't like a lot of the music. A lot of it is like really flat melodies to me that don't really like have that dual octave like harmonized lead lines.
Yeah.
So you get stuff that sounds like da 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 da. It's very kind of jazzy, but like there's no harmony behind it. So to me, it loses what I appreciate in a Mega Man soundtrack, which is that dual melody, dual harmony, all that stuff.
That's fair.
So 6 came out very late in the NES's life cycle. Now you went from having Rush, the robot dog, just be like a helper, but now like he was a suit of armor. So you could do like the power shot with the like I always called it the lobster fist Because it looks like his fist turns into like a lobster claw almost. And then you had the rush jet, which this level in particular, if I recall, is the right level. It's got a sunset in the background when you get up to a certain part of the level, and it's a gorgeous scene, and I love climbing that ladder up above with the rush jet. It's like a suit of armor, but like it's also like a jetpack. And so you blast off. There's a certain like heaviness that Mega Man has in this game with that jetpack, and you could feel that weight. So what I would do is I would get really good at jumping off the platforms and then being able to like kind of like propel myself forward and like play around with the jetpack, where I could be like like with the buttons, so that he would just float. A short float. And sometimes I would go like dangerously low, and then I would pull myself back up with the jetpack. Like I had a lot of fun doing that. And I would just go through that top layer where the sunset was, and it was just a really gorgeous scene to me. Like I'd never seen anything that beautiful in an NES game before. I'd seen it in the Super NES, but not the NES.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Like seeing some of that stuff on the NES is very impressive.
Yeah, especially that late in the life cycle. This was a really gorgeous game to look at for the NES. So
I do have some questions for you that I've been saving up. Not necessarily for me, so I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Some of our listeners.
So you went and asked questions on the Facebook.
I went onto the Facebook.
The Facebook.
And asked if anybody had any fun or funny interview type questions for you, because I have a few of my own.
Oh boy!
But I wanted to see what do our listeners want to know.
Okay.
So this one is from Jordan Davis, and he says, Mike, is there a game character, since we're talking about Mega Man?
Sure.
Is there a game character you could pull off any easier than Mega Man X3's Dr. Doppler?
Oh.
And then he gave a picture.
Oh, that does kind of look like me. Yeah. Okay, all right.
I think we could build that for you.
Yeah. I was gonna say probably Double from Mega Man X4.
X4?
Yeah. The traitor.
The traitor
character.
guy?
Yeah. He's kind of a fat dude. I don't know. I mean, you could build your own character in Saints Row. So what I would do is I would make basically like me, but like way more handsome. So, which is impossible to do, Justin.
Seriously, I mean, God. I was gonna say it. But...
Yeah. To me, with video game characters, like I would always kind of take on whatever persona of the character that I was playing as. So not like in real life. Like I wasn't like walking around like time to get serious like in real life or anything, or like whipping people in real life like Simon Belmont, but. I would play a game and I got really into the character. So like I would look up to a character like Simon Belmont, or I would look up to a character like Mega Man or Mario or whatever I was playing, Link from Zelda. But I never really was like, oh, I look just like Link. I was gonna say Princess Zelda. I really look like Princess Zelda.
Well, in that one video.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I get a similar thing with movies. If a movie is really good and really draws me in, I come out of the movie like really sort of like attaching to the to the protagonist and whatnot, which can sometimes be problematic. In general, are there any characters that you would like to or would totally cosplay?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think that's sort of like the underlying question there.
I think I would, if I was more muscular, I would do Guts from Berserk.
Ooh. Okay.
I've always wanted to do dress up as him. I think that'd be really fun to do because I'm definitely tall. Yeah, I'm 6 foot, so I could probably pull that off. I would just need to beef up
and get a giant sword.
Yeah. Which that's all part of the costume.
Oh yeah, I've built giant swords before. It's doable.
That'd be cool. Simon Belmont. Yeah, I'd love to be Simon. That'd be really really cool. Actually, there's a really terrible photo of me dressed as Reinhard Schneider from Castlevania 64 for Halloween.
Oh, wow.
So I bought this like pleather red fruit roll-up looking material and we made this costume which was just awful. And there's a photo floating around. I don't know, we'll have to post it or something on the Facebook group or something like that because I'm all about embarrassing moments. And I looked like a total idiot. So that's my cosplay answer for you.
All right.
Yuko Takahara, who we forgot to talk about, started with Mighty Final Fight in 93, worked on Mega Man X, Mega Man 6, Final Fight 2, Mega Man 7, and Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters, Star Gladiator Episode 1 on the PS1, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, did a bunch of stuff for Capcom, including the port of Zelda, A Link to the Past 4 Swords, which Capcom produced, that came out in 2002. His final game was Mega Man 10, which came out in 2010, He was one of the many music composers on that.
Yeah, nice.
But I love this game. It's a fantastic game. I really think that it gets a bad rap, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard a lot of bad stuff about Mega Man 6, but either way. So, on that, it looks like we have a caller coming in.
Weird.
I mean, this is your episode, but
Hey.
You want to take it?
Yeah, sure, why not? Why the heck not?
Janine, send that over.
Hey, caller, you're on the air with XVGM Radio. Who's this? Nope. Not taking that call. I know who that is. That's Lavos from Chrono Trigger. I'm not talking to that guy. He's crazy.
He owes me money.
He owes you money? All right, well, let's get out of here real quick. Let's try to escape from him. Chrono Trigger is our next game. This came out on the Super NES in 1995. The track is Corridors of Time. This is such a classic track. It's by Yasunori Mitsuda and Nobuo Uematsu.
You're listening to XVGM Radio, where the bits just keep coming.
Hey, you're back from that lucid dream known as Chrono Trigger, the Super NES 95 release. The track was Corridors of Time, and it's by Yasunori Mitsuda. And to clarify, Nobuo Uematsu had nothing to do with this one. He did, I think 5 or 6 tracks.
Yep.
Basically took over for Mitsuda after he was hospitalized from working on this to the bone.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit with Wiffle.
Yeah, on the Freedom Planet.
Either way, yeah, no, and this is another track that's semi-nostalgic for me. I mean, I didn't get into this game until a little bit later, but just hearing it brought me right back to that to that place, and it's so soothing. I'm probably gonna put this on my sleep playlist for when I need it, because that's so nice.
So Enya. So Enya.
I don't know if I would quite sail away to this, but but no. The one of the things that I really like about this track is there's enough stuff to it that makes it interesting, and a more interesting track than just something that's relaxing and soothing, because those bells are just ever so slightly off time from each other. And some of them get more off time than others, and it doesn't make the track sound bad. It just makes it sound interesting.
I remember reading about this in the RPG section of Nintendo Power and getting stoked for this game. I was so pumped, but Chrono Trigger hit all the right spots for me. It is a masterpiece of a game when I got it at the time when it came out, and I just completely fell in love with the game. The characters, the story. Talk about a game where you see yourself in a character. Chrono was pretty much the everyman, you know what I mean? And everybody kind of put themselves in Chrono's shoes, so you really felt like you were Chrono. And I got most of the endings. I didn't get all the endings, but I got most of the endings with the help of the Nintendo Power Guide.
Right.
And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's just such a great game. And this part of the game, this is when you're going through the Zeal Palace, or right before the Zeal Palace. You're walking around like the area that's like high up in the sky and the clouds and everything, and you're walking on this like floating island, and you're on like, if I recall, it's like this song plays when you're in the map, just walking around in this area. And I just remember getting lost to this song, like just setting the controller down and just kind of vibing with this song. I mean, I really, really love, in particular, the bongos. Those really kind of made me like jump up, like, whoa, like bongos, like really? And I really appreciate the guitar, that like relaxing, like, it's not a shamisen. It's not. I swear to God,
it's not. No, it's not.
It's not. But what is that guitar? It's like a guitar that like.
Oh, it's a sitar. That's right.
A sitar. That's it.
I was thinking about that when we first started listening to it. I made a mental note like, oh, I really like
about the sitar.
And then of course I got into the bells and everything else and totally forgot about the sitar. But yes, that is a sitar, and that is very well used.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Like the instrumentation on this game was golden. Every note, every song had such good instrumentation, and I think this is a perfect example, in my opinion, of why the Super NES chip, you know, you could say what you want about the Genesis sound hardware, but oh my goodness, this blows it out of the water, in my opinion.
They had really, really good samples that they were working from.
They did, yeah. And Yasunori Mitsuda basically almost killed himself to put this soundtrack out, and I think it shows in the effort that he put into this game. This was not his first soundtrack. He did sound effects mostly, kind of playing second fiddle to Nobuo Uematsu, doing sound effects on like Final Fantasy V, Secret of Mana, did sound effects design on that, Romancing Saga 2, and the 7th Saga. And then he got the opportunity to work on Chrono Trigger, and from there he just kind of took off. He worked on stuff like Xenogears, and then he started working for Hudson with the Mario Party series. Started doing Chrono Cross for Square, so he jumped back over to Square. Bomberman 64, he did music for the Second Attack. He did the first 2 games of the Shadow Hearts series. 10,000 Bullets. He's lately been doing a lot of music for RPGs, so he's back in that realm, doing Xenoblade Chronicles in 2010, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2017. I think with Xenoblade Chronicles 1, he co-composed that with Yoko Shimomura, if I recall. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was like all him.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic soundtrack. I'm playing through the game now, and it's really, the soundtrack is really fantastic, so definitely check it out. So I love me some Chrono Trigger. And that also, just to touch on Lavos, since, you know, I did kind of hang up on. That's the first person I've pretty much hung up on in all XVGM history.
We've gotten some weird calls.
We have.
And we usually take them.
Yes, but not from Lavos, because that voice, that scream, that howl.
Haunting.
Terrified me as a kid. So let's move on to our next track.
All right.
So I've got next for you the N64 era. This is Jet Force Gemini.
Nice.
It came out in 1999. The track is Character Select Screen, and the composers are Robin Beanland, Alistair Lindsay, and Graham Norgate.
Oh. back to XVGM Radio. That was Jet Force Gemini, the 1999 release on the N64. The track was called Character Select Screen, and it was composed by Robin Beanland, Alistair Lindsay, and Graham Norgate.
So you know how this one's kind of evil sounding?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, very militant.
Yes.
Yeah, with those drums. Was I in band at the time? I think I was, and we were playing a lot of stuff like this, like very militant sounding stuff. I started doing percussion. I joined band in 6th grade, and I was doing percussion from then until I think my sophomore year of high school. You know, at that time, my parents were going through a divorce, and I really kind of latched on to music and also kind of video games, but more music. Like, that's when I got into heavy metal.
Yep.
That's when I was just kind of this antisocial teenager who just kind of was like, kind of hated people. I was being all like, you know, oh, I hate people, like people are gross, you know. And so I would play like all these N64 like single player games like Zelda, like Ocarina of Time. And specifically this game, it had a multiplayer mode, but I didn't really play it that often. Most of my friends weren't really into it. We tried it out and it wasn't really... The controls in this game have not aged well in Jet Force Gemini. It is a kind of like Resident Evil 4 style, like over-the-shoulder kind of view, but instead of it being over-the-shoulder, it's like it goes into first-person mode. So when you target something, it zooms in and you're seeing through their head. And there's like a cursor, and you can aim the cursor to try to shoot the enemies. And the whole point of the game, to keep the plot really brief, you're playing as one of 3 characters. You start off with Juno, who is this part of this Jet Force Gemini team. Juno is trying to take on basically their ship. I think their ship crashes, and all the characters get separated. So you've got Juno, who's the main lead, and then Vila, the female lead, and then you've got this dog whose name is Lupus. He's like their little mascot. He's like this little puppy, and he's like a robot. Like he has like robot jetpack stuff attached to him, and he could like fly around and stuff.
He's the third character?
He's the third character, yeah. And I think there's some other character named Floyd, and he's like a robot who can help you out too, if I recall. And so the whole point of the game is you are going up against this big bad insectoid enemy tyrant guy named Mizar, and he's got these hordes of these ant drones. They're like insects, like these giant like ant people who are like soldiers. And you've crash landed on this planet, and you're trying to save these people, this race of bear-like creatures. They look almost like a bear and a koala kind of mixed together, and they're called tribals. So you've got to go around and collect these tribals to save them from the ants. You could shoot the heads off the ants, which is pretty cool, and then you collect the heads. But I really, really love this game. I was stoked to play it, and I bought it when it came out, and it's one of my favorite games on the N64. I still haven't beaten it. I've gotten really far, but I have not beaten it yet. Just other games got in the way, and I stopped playing. So
I've heard of this game. This is a Rareware game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, no, I've heard of it. I think I've seen a little bit of it, but I don't remember, and I've not played it.
We'll have to sit down and play it sometime. It's pretty.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, add it to the list. It's pretty fun. You get all different types of weapons. Like you can start off with a pistol, then you can upgrade to a machine gun, and you can get like these pulse fire things, like these rocket launchers and sniper rifles and flamethrowers. All sorts of really cool.
How does it compare to the other 2 Rare shooters, GoldenEye and
Perfect Dark? It's totally different. You could jump in the game too, and the jumping is really awkward. It's a hard game to control now, especially playing like twin stick shooters.
Yeah.
So it hasn't aged well, in my opinion. I haven't played it on the Xbox One, but I love this soundtrack. It's just awesome stuff from some of Rare's best. Robin Beanland and Graham Norgate worked heavily together on stuff like Killer Instinct Gold. I did some work on Donkey Kong Country, Saber Wolf, which was the 2004 Game Boy Advance game.
Yep.
Star Fox Adventures, he was quote credited as an additional musician for David Wise's soundtrack. Conker's Bad Fur Day, the soundtrack for that. Robin Beanland has stayed with Rare to this day. So his latest game is Sea of Thieves, which has gotten rave reviews. Yeah. And he's done really well for himself there. So
it's like the big focus of Rare at this point.
Yeah, that's like their big game. So, and Alistair Lindsay who is also credited for this one, started off with Jet Force Gemini as his first game. Perfect Dark, he was credited as Voices in the Dark, Wallace and Gromit in Project Zoo 2003. Then jumped on to stuff like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, Gangs of London in 2006, Thrillville, and later on did some more indie stuff like Lost Winds in 2008, and Full Mojo Rampage in 2014, and his final game so far, Prison Architect in 2017. So he left Rare pretty early, according to his info.
Yeah.
Graham Norgate is a longtime Rare composer, worked on Killer Instinct in 94, and Diddy Kong Racing he did the sound effects on. GoldenEye 007 he did music with Grant Kirkhope. Jet Force Gemini, of course. Time Splitters, so that's when he jumped over to Free Radical. He also worked on Perfect Dark, he did a couple of the songs there. And then, he was with Free Radical for stuff like Second Sight, the Time Splitters series, and his final game so far is as audio director for Homefront: The Revolution in 2016.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
So what questions you got?
So, Ed Wilson wants to know, in what ways has your journalism degree helped you become a better podcaster?
That's a good question.
I thought so too.
Yeah. I think a lot of people mistakenly think that when you take journalism in college, all you do is write. And that's not true.
Well, writing's part of it. I would assume research is another big part.
Yeah, but you also get to do a lot of different stuff in the journalism industry, ranging anywhere from like public relations, which is barely journalism. Also, I worked in television, I worked in radio, I worked in film, all that sort of stuff you kind of learn the ropes for. So I created my own like TV broadcast thing, which actually aired somewhere. I can't remember where it aired, but
that's cool.
Yeah, you get to work in radio if you want to. You don't have to, but I actually did do college radio, and I mostly did. I had my own like show, and I would do heavy metal mostly, and it was just a good time in doing radio. So that kind of prepared me for doing podcasting, because you got a sense as to how to sound, you got a sense for what your voice should be, and kind of how to drive the show where you want it to go and what you want it to sound like.
Right.
Podcasting is totally different than radio. It's similar in a way, but
especially with our show.
Yeah, well, our show is edited, and you don't really edit.
Right.
We didn't edit back then. Like we would
live.
just like it was live pretty much. So there was a lot of, especially like back then, there was no training. They would just kind of throw you to the wolves. So I'd be like, all right, this is a track, and this is not Arca, and then I would like play the song, and I'd be like, what? Can you guys hear it? Like you would have no idea. There were like certain things that you could do to test. They would be listening in the room to hear if your show was going okay, and I'm sure my show was absolute garbage. So I think I would have like a friend come in too, and then just be like, oh yeah, it's a really good track, and then be like, oh yeah, it was really great, and we're like, okay, let's listen to more metal, yay. So that was kind of it, man. It was fun.
I was gonna say, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah. It's good memories.
Good.
Going through that. So.
Good question. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. We have Metroid Prime, which came out on the GameCube in 2002. This is Parasite Queen Battle, and it's by Kenji Yamamoto and Kouichi Kiyuma. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Mike.
I'm so glad you suggested that we should do a commercial for my review show, Dude, You Haven't Played This Game.
Now, keep in mind, I hired a third party to write the commercial, so I have no idea how it's going to come out. But it's already appearing in other people's video game music podcasts. Let's take a listen.
Do you like terrible dad puns, awkward cringy humor, and grown men eating food on camera? Do you like horrendous production value, bad special effects, and jokes about cheese? I don't like where this is headed. How about video game reviews with intros that are too long, reviews that average between 15 to 25 minutes, and jokes about cheese? Hey, he said that already. Then you'll love Dude, You Haven't Played This Game, a video game review series that's basically if the Angry Video Game Nerd, the Happy Video Game Nerd, and 16-Bit Gems all had weird Muppet coitus, and nobody knows which stork has the baby. You know, the show has a lot more to offer than there's also a cute cat named Zelda and a husky dog named Harley. Ah, okay, there we go. Check him out at youtube.com/dongle today. Well, that's one of the worst ideas you've had, Justin.
Yeah, I'm sorry that it came out so weirdly negative. I wonder who wrote that commercial. It must be someone who has a grudge against you, but who could it be?
Hey, you're back on XVGM Radio, and that was a very haunting track, Metroid Prime, which came out on the GameCube in 2002. That was Parasite Queen Battle, and it's by Kenji Yamamoto and Kouichi Kiyuma.
Nice.
Frightening, right?
It's weird. I get sort of an industrial vibe off of it.
Sure.
But the strings throw me off. Not that you can't have strings in an industrial track, but like
The doo-doo-doo-doo,
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah. A lot of like the sort of the melody. It is like the synth strings. But I mean that beat, the drums, all that like background and rhythm stuff is totally industrial.
I agree. I
love it.
I really like this track, and specifically, I really enjoy the drums for sure. Mm-hmm. That do.
Yes.
I love the idea of having sound effects as percussion.
Yep.
With the, like, to me, that was like, especially when you're fighting this boss. If I recall, this is the boss where it's the Parasite Queen's in that giant tube, and the tube is like rotating around, and there's only certain sections that you can shoot through, if I recall.
Yeah.
And I just remember being really impressed with this song because of those sound effects. Like, it felt like the world was creating, like the world in the game was creating that backbeat, that
I can see that.
And the little like everything like popping and hissing everywhere. And then you've got those keyboards, which they sound definitely off tempo, where it'll be like and then they'll like sustain the note for a little while, and it's a little too long for it to be like melodic.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like really haunting and creepy. And then when you get those other keys in the da 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 da, that part, it's almost like a Phantom of the Opera kind of thing.
I was just gonna say that actually.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like an organ, and very phantomy.
Yeah, definitely. And that whole part right there just sounds very off key. And it's very unsettling. The whole track is really good, but it's just, to me, this is definitely an industrial track that took huge inspiration from the original Metroid soundtrack by Hip Tanaka. So really funny story about Metroid. So I love Metroid. It's one of my favorite franchises. I started off playing the NES game, then I skipped Super Metroid, and I skipped Metroid 2.
Yep.
So Super Metroid, the funny story with that one is I did really good in 5th grade, right around the time when that game came out. And I really wanted the game. And so I told my parents, and usually what would happen is if I had a good report card, I would get a game. So I really wanted Super Metroid, and it came out like right around the time of my birthday. I think it even came out on my birthday, if I recall. So I never got the game. I don't know what happened, but my parents never got it for me, and I still to this day kind of rib my mom about it. Just like, I'll be like, yeah, Mom, you never got me Super Metroid, and she's like, do you want me to go get it for you now? And I'm like, Mom, chill, I've got it complete in box, it's cool, like, don't worry about it. But so I immediately jumped to Metroid Prime because I was super stoked for this one. I remember watching the Space World 2000 demo for it, and seeing Samus running away from these, like, all these little, like, parasites, like, running around. I remember just being enthralled with that video and watching it in super, super low resolution, you know, at home. And then I went to college. In 2002, I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and I had pre-ordered the game close to home at the town. And so I convinced my friend to drive me to, because he was like, well, I want to go to the record store anyways. So we went first to pick up Metroid Prime, and then we went to the record store. And that was when I picked up Opeth's Blackwater Park album.
Okay.
And so I kind of link buying that album with this game. It's weird. I don't know why I have that connection, but it makes
Because you got them both in the same day.
Right. Well, it makes sense, but like two drastically different products. Yeah, so we went back to my buddy's apartment and popped it in his GameCube and started playing it and just completely fell in love with it. I mean, it's a really great game. A great continuation of the Metroid franchise. Kenji Yamamoto, just to touch on the composer, started working on Mike Tyson's Punch-Out in 1987. Later on did music for Super Metroid and has pretty much been the Metroid guy ever since then, doing music for Prime, Metroid Fusion he was the sound director on, and Metroid Zero Mission he did the composition of Hip Tanaka's tracks as well as some original stuff.
Nice.
Prime 2 and Prime Pinball he did the music for. Prime 3 he did the music for. He worked on Super Smash Bros. Brawl and of course did some other stuff for Nintendo in between, so stuff like Excite Bike World Rally, Excite Bots, Trick Racing, he was the music chief on. He did a bunch of other stuff like some of the newer Pilot Wings games, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on the Wii U, and came back to do music direction on Metroid Samus Returns in 2017.
Oh, yeah.
And his final credit was 2017's Hey Pikmin, which he did sound progress management on. I'm not familiar with Kouichi Kiyuma. I guess they started off with Metroid Prime as a music assistant and then later did a lot of really weird games for Nintendo. Sound support mostly on stuff like Electroplankton, Jam with the Band, Photo Dojo, did sound engineering on The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, did sound engineering on ARMS in 2017 for the Switch, as well as Mario Tennis Aces.
Nice.
And that's it.
Some pretty cool games.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we are getting another call on our hotline. So, Janine, go ahead and forward that over to us. Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio on the Mike Spectacular episode. What can I do for you?
Mike, my darling son.
Mom?
Just wanted to call and let you know that I found a report card and I think I owe you a video game.
Oh, boy.
What can I get you? Do you still want that Metroid 2?
You mean Super Metroid, Mom?
Whatever it is. I think I owe it to you.
You don't. I have it already. But thanks, Mom. You have any requests?
Well, just let me know what you want. It's your request.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a fair point. All right. Well, I guess, Mom, thanks for calling in.
I love you.
Love you too, Mom. All right. Well, let's go listen to another track. Okay. So we got Prince of Persia coming up next. This is The Warrior Within. This came out on the GameCube, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the PC in 2004. And the track is Tower Encounter, and it's by Stuart Chatwood. It's not by Godsmack, but
No.
they did do licensed tracks on the...
So I heard.
Yes.
Welcome back from that rockin' track. I couldn't even find the word. I was like shredding.
Rubble, rockin' track.
That was from Prince of Persia Warrior Within. Came out in the GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and PC in 2004. The track was called Tower Encounter, and it was composed by Stuart Chatwood, and Godsmack also did some licensed tracks on that game.
Yeah.
But man, you're telling me that Godsmack didn't do that?
I thought for the longest time that Godsmack did all the music that had guitar.
Totally understandable, because
Right.
geez, wow.
I think what happened was early on they probably were like, we're going to get Godsmack to do... I think they only had like maybe 2 or 3 tracks in the game. And it was like one of them played at the credits, one of them played and like I think the trailer maybe. I think they did the Stand Alone, that track.
Yeah.
So I think they did that one, and then I think one other, which I can't remember. But this composer, Stuart Chatwood, did a great job emulating Godsmack.
Really did.
And what I really love is that he blended in those Middle Eastern kind of like Israeli, Arabian kind of vibes.
Oh, yeah.
With like instrumentation. Like really, really awesome job. And that's actually what really got me into heavy metal fused with anything Middle Eastern. So I started like frantically looking for like bands that had that vibe, and I found a couple, and they quickly became some of my favorite bands. Stuff like Camelot, Distorted, I think their name is. This track kind of inspired me to go search out music that was like that, like, you know, other types of soundtracks. So I remember playing Prince of Persia Sands of Time, and before that I played Prince of Persia on the Super NES, and I hated it. I thought it was too slow, too clunky. I've heard the Sega CD version is actually pretty good because you can speed up the actual movement, which is really cool.
That's helpful, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, especially in a game like Prince of Persia with that rotoscoping feature. Everything is very, very sluggish to me. So I did not like the Super NES version, but I ended up picking up for GameCube the Sands of Time, and I fell in love with it. It's a fantastic action platformer. But that game was very like lighthearted in the vibe, and it felt very classic, almost like you were watching a movie. And so when Warrior Within came out, I was like instantly buying, and it looked more like a gothic adventure. It looked a little bit more darker, and the music and the trailer and everything from Godsmack kind of like gave me that vibe, like, oh, this is going to be like a really dark game, and it had like some sexy characters in it too. But the whole point I'm trying to get at is it was a darker game.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people didn't like it because it was so dark. The Prince kind of did a 180. He went from being this like fun-loving, cracking jokes while going through these like perilous platforming.
Yeah.
And he went from that to this very angsty, very like
Well, didn't he have like
hot
a split
topic
person?
kind of?
Not a split personality, but what wasn't there some kind of like dual personality?
That was in the third one.
That was the third?
Yeah, the third one he had like a dual personality. I want to go back and beat the first one and beat the second one and then start the third one. So
Yeah.
it's on my list.
Yeah.
I was sold on Warrior Within. I mean, it had pretty much everything that I look for in a game. The biggest complaint I had with it was the constantly breaking weapons, which I hate. I can't stand that, and they do it in Breath of the Wild. That's why I never got into it.
Did Warrior Within do away with the reversing time aspect?
No.
Okay.
You could still reverse time, but you've got this sand monster chasing after you, and you're trying to get away from it. So you're constantly running, and so because of that, he became very cynical, very dark, and very brooding. And I think that's where the character went. It's just you don't see that in between, and you actually end up seeing the in between in, I think it's called The Forgotten Sands. It's a game that came out way after when the movie came out, the Prince of Persia movie, and it is a prequel that fits in between Sands of Time and Warrior Within. I've not played it. I own it, but I really need to check it out. Questions?
So, we'll throw some semi-related silly ones at you.
All right.
So, Jordan Davis asks, Mike, how cool is it to have a Kirby power named after you?
I love the microphone. In Kirby Adventure, you get the microphone and you get 3 different hits.
Yep.
And Kirby does the different poses, and then the last one, I think he's got like a mohawk or something like that, and he grabs the mic and he just screams into it. Yeah.
The follow-up to that is, who is your favorite video game, Mike? And picture accompanies it. I believe that's from Star Tropics.
Oh, yeah. I gotta say Mike Hagar from Final Fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Definitely. Yeah, he's my favorite.
I forgot his first name was Mike, because
Because everyone called him
Hagar, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Cool.
What do we got next?
Next up, we're going to move into the PlayStation 4 and Vita era. This is from Gravity Rush, and this is on the PS Vita in 2012, and it got ported to the PS4 under the remastered label, and that was on 2016, and the track is called The Phantom of Hexville, and it's by Kohei Tanaka. You are back to our show. And that was Gravity Rush, the PlayStation Vita 2012 release, and it got remastered or re-released on the PlayStation 4 in 2016. The track was The Phantom of Hexville, and that was by Kohei Tanaka. I love me some Gravity Rush.
Yeah.
Have you played this game?
I have not. I've seen you play a little bit of it, and it looks. I was going to say nauseating, but that and that totally takes away from like how awesome the game actually looks. Like when I say nauseating, I mean I feel like I was watching you change gravity a whole bunch, and I was just like, "What is going on? Oh my god!"
I think it's a really hard game to watch other people play. I think it's one of those games that you have to play yourself because you're controlling the character.
Yeah.
So the whole point of the game is you're playing as this girl named Kat with a K. And she wakes up, she has no memory of who she is, where she's from, or whatever. I can't remember how she finds out that her name is Kat. I think somebody gives her that name, if I recall. But you end up finding a cat, and it's got like this weird sparkle to it. It's like an all-black cat, but it's like translucent, see-through almost. Looks like stardust. And you end up calling it Dusty. So Dusty, the cat, has given Kat these powers that allow her to shift gravity in her favor. She can go where she wants, when she wants. Everything is linked up to like a specific like power meter or bar at the top. And so you could shoot yourself through pretty much everywhere. And it takes a little bit of getting used to. For a while there, you do look like you're just stumbling around because you're kind of pointing yourself in a specific direction and then going in that direction. Then you gotta kind of like stop short, then move the camera to where you want to go next, and then launch yourself. It's like I said, it's a little difficult initially to get down, but once you get it down, it is so much fun. It's a really, really fun game. You know, I won't get too much into the plot, really, but I did want to say that the game has these mini challenges that I really, really loved. Kind of like a Grand Theft Auto sort of thing where, like, you have a certain amount of time to complete the challenge and you always want to try to better yourself and get a faster time. And so that's what I would do, is I would play the game, you know, in the story mode or whatever, and you're basically going around helping people find, like, lost animals or lost people or whatever. And you feel bad for Kat because she keeps, like, doing all these nice things for people, and they're just like, why'd you do that? Now you ruined my house or whatever. Like, she saves this guy's son or something like that, and then the guy flips out on her because she destroyed his house. He's just like, yo, you destroyed my house. Yeah, but I saved your son. Like, dude, for real? And then, like, there's stuff like that throughout the entire game. I know I'm explaining it really like, wow, why would I want to play this game? It sounds like you're getting dumped on all the time and you don't have control of yourself. But
Sweet.
You really come to love and appreciate the characters. But the mini challenges are really where it's at for me personally. I love just redoing them over and over and over again to try to get a better score. I really did enjoy the story, and it's a lot of fun. The gameplay is challenging. You get all these different power-ups and upgrades and stuff throughout the game. Very kind of like Zelda-ish, where like you'll get a power-up and then you can level, kind of like Castlevania sort of in a way too, because you can like level stuff up. Like, it's kind of a mix of a lot of different games that you come to enjoy, but I got a very like Zelda vibe from this, almost like French Zelda, because the whole environment is very French European-ish. Musically speaking, what do you think of this?
This one was another really interesting one. I like how it came in really heavy with like those drums and the guitars, and then it comes in kind of classical with the horns and the strings.
Yeah, very like militant.
Yeah.
And the strings like da 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 da. I love that like start stop sort of stuff.
Yeah. It's a really interesting blending of styles. I think. I mean the entire thing works as its own sort of single style, but it also to me feels like a metal rhythm with like more classical melody.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the blending of those two with like metal and classical music I've always appreciated. Like, I love music that does that. But with this, I almost got like a 70s prog rock kind of vibe, or prog like metal kind of vibe. Yeah. Because then the guitar comes in, that wailing guitar, and like you get that guitar solo while the strings are still going at it. So I felt like a very Metallica, S&M kind of thing meets like prog rock, like stuff like Rush or you know, Kansas or Yes, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, I would agree. That's completely valid. I kind of forgot about the guitar solo. Not that it was unmemorable, but I was so focused on just all the other things that the guitar solo wasn't front in my mind. But you know that it was very progressive. I agree.
It's a really cool track. It's very impressive, and the rest of the soundtrack is just as good. So definitely recommended. So Kohei Tanaka did this and the Gravity Rush 2, the sequel. Unfortunately, we probably will never see a third game. He started off with a PC-98 game, Cybernetic High School Part 3 Gunbuster, which I believe came out on the PC-98.
We've talked about him a few times.
Yeah, he's quickly becoming one of my more favorite composers. He's done work on stuff like Paladin's Quest in 92, and then he did some other like anime-ish type games exclusive to Japan, stuff like Tenge Makio. He did work on Sakura Tyson 2, Alundra in 97. He did the music on the Alundra games. Legend of Legaia, which I know we played from you fairly recently. And then he did music for the Bionic Commando remake by Capcom, as well as Resonance of Fate in 2010. And then he started working on Gravity Rush, and also he did the composition for Astaroth. Alright, so we're going to move into my final pick for the Mike Extravaganza episode 26. This is Saints Row 4. This came out on the PlayStation 3, the PS4, the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and PC and Linux. It came out in all different times, but it initially released in 2013, and then later on came out in 2015 for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The track we're going to be listening to is by Malcolm Kirby Jr., and it's called Northeast City.
Welcome back, XVGM listeners. That was our final track of the night. It was from Saints Row 4, which came out on the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, PC, and Linux in 2013. The track was called Northeast City, and it was by Malcolm Kirby Jr.
Yeah, I dig me some Saints Row 4.
Yeah, I do know that it's one of your favorite games.
I love this game.
I really like the music from this game.
It is really good. I mean, it's tough because I really wanted to play a licensed track. And there's so much really good licensed music. So the whole point of the game is you become the president of the United States. This is a continuation of Saints Row the Third. And what's really cool is that if you played this on the Xbox 360 or PS3, you could upload your created character using this inauguration station thing that you would download. So you download it to the inauguration station, then you would use that, and when you got Saints Row 4, you could upload your character. The voice and everything would transfer over. So all your picks, all the little nuanced details and everything that you picked, the created character was, I think, identical, if not a little better on Saints Row 4. I had never played Saints Row 1, I had never played Saints Row 2. I did play Saints Row 3, and I loved it, because it was goofy.
Yeah.
It was goofy and silly and over the top, and it was basically like a really goofy parody version of Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And I've played Grand Theft Auto, but I got really, really bored with it, initially.
Same.
But Saints Row, I really kind of adopted to the whole, gangster thing, and I really got into it. But the fact that there was all this crazy stuff going on around them, what ends up happening is in Saints Row the Third, you become, your character, the boss, becomes the president of the United States. So that's where it starts off in the fourth game. And then this alien Zinyak invades and takes over. And basically everything that you come to know and love disappears. And then you're sent to this crazy 1950s world. And you're just like, hey, how's it going? Your character's walking around all 1950s out. Finally you snap out of it thanks to this awesome character named is Kinsey. And Kinsey's your tech guru. She kind of snaps you out of it, and she's like, all right, you are part of a fictional, virtual world, basically. You're no longer on Earth. And so you end up finding out that it's kind of you're in the Matrix almost. Yeah. Right. So this is not a game to play with kids. No. Not at all.
Pretty sure this is rated M.
This is definitely. This should be rated X, in my opinion. This is a very mature rated game. But it's really cool, because it's got a lot of throwback stuff, too, to, retro stuff. But this song, I don't remember this song playing, but I know that this song does play when you're in the city, kind of roaming around. I think it's in between cutscenes or something like that. But this is just totally dubstep vaporwave type.
Yeah,
of kind of a mix.
Yeah, I really like the bass in this one. The beat is really strong. The lower notes of the music are really, really powerful. Overall, this one, I think this one blew me away above a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, this reminded me a lot of Tron Legacy.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of Daft Punk type stuff. So I was really feeling it. So Malcolm Kirby Jr. has worked on all the Saints Row type stuff, Agents of Mayhem. Pretty much worked, part of Volition, the developer that created Saints Row.
Right.
So, but I enjoy his work on this game and all the others. So it's a great soundtrack. I mean, aside from the fact that there's so much licensed stuff that, a lot of it's really questionable too, because especially if you listen to a lot of the dubstep type stuff, I always thought that a lot of that stuff was created for the game. It wasn't. A lot of it's actual dubstep artists and stuff like that. So. But yeah, I got into a lot of music that I'd never heard before, and I was like, yeah, this is really good stuff. So it's highly, highly recommended. Let me put it this way. I don't replay a lot of games. I don't. This game I beat twice on Xbox 360. I played as a guy first, and then I played as a girl. And then I transferred my girl character over to Saints Row 4, and I played through on Xbox 360. I played through that. And then I started playing through as my other character, my male character. And then when the PS4 came out, this was the first game that I rebought because it came with the expansion pack, the Gat Out of Hell.
Yep.
Which is the additional bonus level. And, I haven't gotten through everything. I started Gat Out of Hell, but I started playing through the game. I beat the game again. Yep. I'm going through it again, a second time. I absolutely love this game. It's so much fun. You have all these crazy superpowers. It kind of kills it for Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 is really, really good. And it is an amazing game, but it's still rooted in that Grand Theft Auto stuff, whereas this is more like Infamous with the powers and everything that you get. So it's a great game. Highly recommended.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's it.
That's almost it.
I
have one more question for you. This one is not particularly silly. How did you come to understand or know that you were absolutely in love with the VGM genre?
I mean, it definitely, I would say the NES era is when it started. And I would leave songs on loop because I didn't have any other way to listen to them.
Yep.
So, for example, Mega Man 3, I would leave that title theme up and I would just hang out. And I would just listen to it over and over and over again. When you beat a boss and you got that password music, the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, I would let that sit and loop over and over and over again. And that's how I got into video game music, is I would just like listen to it when I wasn't playing, but I was playing. It's weird because I had no other recourse. I didn't have anything where I could like record it. I didn't have like a tape deck or anything like that where I could record it, so I just listened to it in game. And it wasn't until I'd say like the Super NES era when Nintendo Power started offering in like catalogs soundtracks. So I remember I got like the Donkey Kong Country 1 and Donkey Kong Country 2 soundtracks, and it wasn't until high school that I started really looking into getting actual video game soundtracks. I would get these game magazines and they would have like these import sections in them where they had like a telephone line that you can call and order stuff. It wasn't until like I'd say late high school or early college that I started actually downloading soundtracks and listening to the music. What I would do is I would get like virtual NSF and listen to the game soundtracks for like NES games. And I would just buy soundtracks like the Perfect Dark soundtrack and Killer Instinct and all that type of stuff, and I would get those CDs and I would put them on my old computer, and then I would burn discs, and then I would have the discs like a mix.
Yeah.
And then I would take those and I would convert them to cassette because my mom's car didn't have CD player.
Right.
She had a cassette player. So we would drive around and listen to all these mixes that I would make of actual like regular heavy metal or hard rock or like Iron Maiden, stuff like that. And then like spliced in would be video game music. So it was kind of funny that I would just have this tape of random heavy metal, and then it'd be like jazz, like random jazz music. So I've always been like very eclectic music listener, but I would say that it all started with NES, just listening to that music on repeat, on loop, playing the games over and over and over again just to hear that one little bit of music. Sound tests, that was really big too. Like I would go through and listen to the sound test. Yeah, that's pretty much my journey into VGM.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, our favorite moment of the episode, of every episode. Favorite track. What was your favorite track of Mike's picks, Justin?
So my favorite track is going to be Mega Man 6.
Really?
The Tomahawk Man track.
That's really funny.
Yeah, why?
I thought for sure you'd pick Chrono Trigger or the Saints Row track.
So I did want to pick both of those, and those are very high on my list. The reason I didn't pick Chrono Trigger is because I'm very familiar with it. I love it. It's got a lot of nostalgia. But Mega Man 6, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't really play this one. So this is something from a series that I love, but a game that I didn't really play. And it surprised me with just like how good it was. Like I really, really enjoyed it. Now I kind of want to play Mega Man 6 for that track.
Yes, excellent. All these tracks are nostalgic to me in some way, shape, or form. I have stories that I just shared, throughout this entire episode. I'm going to say Super Castlevania 4.
Really?
Yeah, I just think that it encapsulates everything that I like about music. It has the classical, like Baroque type stuff, but it also has the jazz type stuff. A lot of the soundtrack has all these moments, plus like heavy metal influences. A lot of the string arrangements are very like heavy metal-ish.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun. Like it's very crunchy. I dig it. So yeah, it's probably my favorite soundtrack of the list. But Mega Man 6 was really high up there for me. That was probably gonna be my pick, but I think Super Castlevania 4 edged it out a little bit.
That's fair. I mean, you're a huge fan of a lot of the stuff that's here,
Sure.
obviously, but I think most of us know you best for your Castlevania fandom.
True. So, we have an announcement. We are going to be at Too Many Games this year. 2019. It's going to be June 21st through the 23rd. So Justin and I will be there. We'll be the dorks in the XVGM radio shirts.
Yep. We're gonna have them made.
And we will be presenting stickers. So if you
just come talk to us and we'll give you a sticker.
Yep. Pretty much. Maybe we could set up some sort of
a meetup or something.
Yeah. If you guys are interested in doing a meetup and you are going to Too Many Games, jump into our Discord and shoot us a quick message on there. You know, like in our XVGM Radio Discord. It is in our show notes. That's how you can get it. Jump in and shoot a message there, and we will chat about maybe doing some sort of meetup and grabbing some Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell for the win.
Yes.
But it'd be good to meet some people in person.
Yes, totally agreed.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Peter Panda, The Autistic Gamer 89, and Mixmaster. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGMRadio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
So, Justin, what do we have coming up for episode 27?
So for episode 27, we are going to be checking out and listening to water themes from various different games.
And this is kind of exciting because originally we had what we're planning on doing for episode 28 as episode 27, and we were trying to pick tracks for our live show.
Yeah. And
Justin suggested water themes, and I was like, that's a great idea. And as I'm like picking tracks, I'm like, dude, there's so many. I need more room to fit more tracks. I'm like, darn you, Justin.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a good find because I think at some point we also have to do water themes too. Like, there's a lot of really...
Oh, definitely.
It was kind of a throwaway thing at first, and then I was just like, oh no, yeah, you're right. There's a lot more to this.
Yeah.
So,
dag nabbit, Justin.
It's going to be good, though.
Yes, absolutely. So that's all we got for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all the questions, by the way. That was awfully nice of some of you. So this is Mike
and Justin
signing off from XVGM Radio. Then until I think my sophomore year of high school. And that's when I dropped out. I just had other stuff that I was working on.
Dropped out of band.
Yeah, I dropped out of band.
You didn't drop out of high school because you went to college.
I dropped out of high school, man. I was living on the line. Living on the lamb and the line, man. No, I was... Yeah, I just dropped out of band. Yeah, sure, why not? Why the heck not?
Janine, send that over.
Hey, everybody! I'm going to take the call. No! All right.